meeting to order at 6:03. Board Clerk, do you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'll begin with Director Gould, who I am not seeing on our virtual. Just double checking, he's not in our attendee group for any reason. Okay, moving to Director Orzali. You are present, sir. And Director Wood.
Here.
Sheets.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Clark.
Present.
White.
Here.
And President Saylor's turning it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's do the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Moving on, Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cable cast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Monday, May 2nd at 6 p.m. and Wednesday, May 4th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14 webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net. We now have the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
There are no speakers here in person. Art, could you please unmute our participants, our virtual participants?
Yes, attendees, you have the ability to unmute yourself. If there's anything you'd like to present to the board at this time, please. Looks like no response.
All right, we're going to move on to the consent items. Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move consent.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Jones and a second from Director Wood. Madam Clerk, will you roll the call, please?
Absolutely. Director Gould, I'm still showing as absent. Director Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to action items. The first one is the general district election, November 8th, 2022. Board Clerk Benita.
Good evening, everyone. Before you tonight, we have our general district election for November 8th, 2022. This is the resolution that will need to work with Sacramento County and Placer County. They will do the election for us. They will mail the voters in each of your jurisdictions the correct ballot, and they will tally everything for us. So essentially, they will run the election for us. It has been our past practice to do it this way. And I will say it saves the district a considerable amount of money, as doing something like that could be very expensive. We have budgeted for this to take place again. And we have 4 seats up for election this year. We have Division 1, 3, 7, and 9. Those divisions are all on their regular cycle. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have this evening.
Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, the filing period for election, June, July.
Yes, the candidacy filing period begins on Monday, July 18th, and it runs through Friday, August 12th. And that is the period of time that the current directors have to file their candidacy. If for some reason one of our candidates decides not to run again, then members of the public would have an extra week to then submit papers if they so wish to run for an open seat at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I will accept the motion in a second. Madam, go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, okay,
General election.
here you go.
No, go ahead. Make a motion.
Yes, sir.
To adopt two resolutions calling the November 8, 2022 general election, requesting consolidation of the election with the statewide general election.
I'll second, Madam Clerk, or Madam Chair.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll, please.
Absolutely. Director Gould is still absent. Director Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next, we have reports. President's report. I have nothing to report. We get on to the fire chief's report. Chief Wagaman.
Well, good evening, President Saylor and directors. Tyler Wagaman speaking on behalf of Fire Chief Harms this evening. Chief Harms and Chief Mitchell are at FDIC, and Chief Bailey and Chief Harms will be attending Cap to Cap next week as well. First off is retirements. I want to congratulate Reserve Firefighter Rob Driver. Rob Driver was a staple in the reserve program when I started here in 1996. He took me under his wing. I owe a huge gratitude for him for the training that he provided me and setting me up really at the beginning of my career. So I want to thank Rob Driver for the 30 years of dedication that he provided to the members of Metro Fire, as well as the community of North Highlands, Rio Linda, and Alberta. So congratulations to Robert. Also, firefighter Joe Reyes, he retired on April 15th with 21 years of service. Every other week, the fire chief and the deputy chiefs put together a biweekly video to put out to the membership. And we last met on the 10th and put a video together from operations, support services, and administration. I want to thank for several folks that attended on April 15th at the Zinfandel First Responder Training Facility location. We had a press release and media event. And I know some of the board of directors were there that day. It was an outstanding event. I think it was a good representation of what Metro Fire does each and every single day. But I want to specifically thank CSDA, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, Local 522, the Rancho Cordova Police Department, the City of Rancho Cordova, Assemblyman Ken Cooley, as well as you, the Metro Fire Board of Directors. A very successful event, and we appreciate the several of you that were able to show up that day, as well as the ones that met us there that day virtually. So thank you. And that concludes the fire chief's report. I'd like to pass it over to Chief Law. She's covering for Chief Mitchell tonight, and she has the operations report. Thank you.
Do we have sound up here or do I? No, we do not. Can you guys hear me okay? Hi, so I'm covering for Chief Mitchell, Barbie Law Assistant Chief in the EMS Division. Tonight, I have a few updates for you. First, we always start with our statistics. So since our last board meeting on April 14th, we've responded to 3,865 total incidents. That call volume is basically consistent with the last time period. So running about 276 calls a day. Call incidents by type, we had 2,586 EMS responses. For an average of 184 EMS responses per day, which is a small decrease from our last meeting. And we had 123 fire incidents, which was about 3.2% of the incidents that we responded to. And that was an average of about 8.8 fire calls per day. Just a tiny decrease from our last reporting period. We had two notable incidents, fire incidents here in the last week. Last night in Battalion 7A in Carmichael, we did have a residential structure fire. The crews arrived to find fire in a bedroom at the back of the house and very heavy smoke conditions throughout. Sadly, we did have one victim succumb on this fire. However, the fire was quickly knocked down, and that fire remains under investigation at this point right now. We did not have any other firefighters or civilians injured. This afternoon, we actually had an incident over at our logistics building. And I'm really pleased to say that everyone at logistics jumped into action just like our firefighters would. So they did have a fire in one of the commercial dryers. And I really wanted to thank several people specifically by name because they all worked together quickly, just as our firefighters would, to get this under control and limit the damage to the dryer. And nothing else was damaged at logistics. So we had James Thomas that actually used a dry chem extinguisher and a water extinguisher to put that fire out, while Bobby Sestito ran and secured the gas to the building. Garrett Putman secured the electrical to the dryer itself, and Mark Jones and other people, we got the door shut to the office buildings and evacuated everybody. So a pretty successful operation for logistics, and not something that they are used to doing. And so great job for limiting that and no injuries on that as well. From the training division, they're finishing up with week 9 at the Fire Academy and holding steady with 38 recruits currently. They are working right now on their Hazmat Pro and Decon certifications, as well as their Fire Control 3. So that's their live fire training. Due to the size of the group, they've split them up into two. So we've got half of the people working on the hazmat training, while the other half are over at Station 52 doing their live fire training, and then they'll swap next week to wrap that up. From the EMS division, we actually hosted a regional training event last week for our peer review meeting. We had a joint meeting with UC Davis Medical Center. It is currently Child Prevention Abuse Month. And Dr. Julia Magana from UC Davis did a lecture for us on child abuse recognition and prevention. And then we followed that up with some case studies from actual calls that were run at Metro Fire. So that was a very successful event attended by not only EMTs and paramedics from across the area, but we also had nurses. We were able to issue CEs for our EMTs and providers through Metro Fire, and UC Davis handled the CEs for the nurses. So we look forward to the future of expanding our CQI opportunities and having these guest lectures here and opening that up to the region. It's pretty exciting for us. Let's see here. What else do I have? Captain Scott Shield is finishing up his time in the EMS division. He's been here with us and done a fantastic job, but he's ready to go back to the line and be a fire captain again. So he'll be going back out on May 1st, and then Captain Brendan Hogan will be coming into the EMS division when he's finished his time with the Fire Academy. So I just wanted to say thank you to Scott for all of the work that he's done, especially on that narcotic project that we talked about previously. And then last, from special operations, our CERT members have donated 310 hours of their time in March to the district. Most of that was just on preparation training for any incidents that we might have out there. So that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Firefighters Local 522 report. Looks like DC Matt Cole is not here.
Good evening, directors. My name is Mike Gildone. I'm a shop steward on C shift. VP Cole apologizes. He's at the Cal Fire Benevolent Foundation tonight, so he couldn't be here. So he so graciously volunteered me to do some public speaking on a Thursday night. So I'll do my best following Chief Law's no small feat. So first and foremost, we want to thank Director Sailors, Wood, and Gould for continuing to visit stations, and also Director Jones for going and visiting logistics. It really is, it does mean a lot to the membership, and I can tell you as the lowest level firefighter, the lowest rank, it does mean a lot to us to have you guys out to the stations. And I know you've all done a little bit, and I would encourage you to continue to come out and visit with us, get to know us, see how our day in and day out operations go when we're not just running calls, or come and watch us train, do those kinds of things. We really do appreciate that. And we think it's good for everybody. We had our unit meeting in April last week. There was about 50 attendees via Zoom and in person. We're trying to get more involvement in person. Obviously, it's the same with you guys. It feels just a little more productive when you get people there. So Matt's trying to think of creative ways to get people more involved. We're trying to do that. We had a service delivery team meeting last week. I had to zoom in on that one, but we continue to make some progress there. Hopefully, we're going to start our rough drafts for the safer positions next week at our next meeting, which is on the 9th. The next thing, BP Cole had the opportunity to go to care court at the governor's office, which was, from what I understand, it's a new initiative to attempt to service the homeless community. And he said it was a really productive meeting. He got to attend it with the fire chief and the CPF, Brian Rice, and it sounded like it was just a really good thing to be a part of, and he's looking forward to what that may produce. So the next thing he wanted me to touch on was we're continuing to work with management on addressing the SRP LOU, and hopefully that we can make some progress there. I know you spoke to that when I presented to you for the service team, that first presentation that Chief Rudnicki and I did. That continues to be a top priority for us because we believe that that can be a good program if we can continue to support those members. The next thing, we're looking forward to getting our negotiations for the rest of the local going this next month in May. So we hope to sit down with management and begin to work towards some resolution there. And finally, we want to recognize Jackie Kataka, who she was a single role paramedic with us. She spent about 6 years with us, and she's moving on to pursue a different career. But we really appreciate her and all the hard work that she did. That concludes my report, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did have just one thought in getting directors back into the stations. It's also really helpful to be invited.
Okay, absolutely.
So it just makes it a better exchange, in my opinion, on both sides.
Yes, sir. We will we'll extend the invite.
I concur, Director Arzali. Just makes it smoother.
Sounds good.
I also concur, Director Clark.
Well, expect some phone calls then.
All right.
All right.
I show up at Station 21 uninvited, probably every other Saturday to train and sit in the station for a while. And they're always very welcoming and hospitable, so I appreciate that.
I'm glad to hear that. Good. Thank you.
All right, up next, we have committee and delegate reports. First is the executive committee. Our next meeting is May 12th at 5 p.m. Next, Communication Center JPA, Chief Wagon.
Yeah, good evening again, directors. The last Communication Center JPA meeting was canceled. We're going to meet again on May 10th. End of report.
Thank you. Next is California Fire and Rescue Training JPA, Chief Wagon.
Thank you again, directors. On behalf of Fire Chief Harms, the California Fire Rescue Training JPA met on April 20th. During that meeting, all agencies adopted the dissolution of the JPA effective June 30th. The last class for the JPA will be held this Friday, April 29th. Fiscally, the JPA is sound. And lastly, assets associated with the JPA will be distributed amongst the agencies that have contributed to the JPA. The next meeting is going to be on May 25th, and that concludes my report.
I have one question.
Yes.
When will the assets be distributed? Has there been a date set for that?
I know there are an enormous amount of resources. There are several Connex boxes that are out at the Zinfandel training site that are absolutely packed full of items, and it's going to take some time to go through those. I will get you a specific answer, but if I were to guess, it would be between now and June 30th. It's going to take that amount of time just to go through and inventory everything that the JPA has under its wing and distribute it accordingly.
Thank you. Up next, Finance and Audit Committee, Director Rosali.
The Finance and Audit Committee met and received a financial report from our CFO, Mr. O'Toole. Our next meeting will be on May 26th, and where we will have the presentation item on the preliminary budget.
Thank you. Up next, Policy Committee, which would be Director Gould, and he's not here tonight. But I will give the report that the next meeting is on May 12th at 5:30 p.m. Up next, board member questions and comments. Director Jones.
Thank you, Madam President. What I'm trying to do is get under one topic a variety of things that I've been thinking about. And a lot of it has to do with, as you all know from several meetings starting last summer, we had interested membership meet in this very room, and we had a great turnout over at least 3 meetings about how to help improve and encourage participation and development within Metro Fire. And that included facilities, et cetera, and we made some progress on that. And I just wanted to let the board to request that the board keep in the forefront of their mind that we are on the verge of another step, is that we should be receiving a salary survey for civilian staff, as well as an evaluation for hypothetically, or not, the hypothesis that we will need some more civilian staff to help cover our expanding duties and ever increasing workload. So I wanted to comment on that, and that tags into, for example, logistics. I wanted to thank all the gentlemen out there. Terrific visit. I learned a lot, and that's one example of hopefully when we get our Zinfandel training center up, think about all the necessary items that need to be included in our business plan for that. And one example would be logistics, because we'll have to beef up logistics to be able to help support a large training center. That's one example of some of the great opportunities that I super hope, fingers crossed and everything, that we're going to be able to get off the ground at Zinfandel. Let's see. I'm looking forward to the Cap to Cap trip. Again, some of our concerns for funding for capital improvements for fire stations. We'll do our best to give a pitch and give our presentations about all the work that is done day in and day out, with actually less and less people, more and more responsibility, more and more calls. It is, as COVID has shown, everyone is stretched maximum. And we need, as a board, we need to see what we can do to help foster remedies for that stress of the increased workload. That's a very, very big concern for me. And I'm sure my fellow directors and staff, everyone has the same point of view. So let's all work together and take all the steps necessary to remedy this challenge that's in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jones. Director Kelly.
Thank you, Director. I wanted to make mention, Chief Wagaman mentioned Mr. Driver, who was a stalwart in our volunteer program. I had met him many, many times, came across him on fires and the summertime program, the fire camp. And he was always a great guy, and I hope him the absolute best in retirement, and wanted to thank him for his service.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Director Sheets.
Good evening, everyone. I just had 2 comments. I wanted to wish both retirees a long and happy retirement. And to all those mothers out there, whether they're working on the front lines or in the back offices, a wonderful Mother's Day. That's all.
Thank you. Director Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to Captain DeCurtis, Engineer Gusinov. I still don't have his name, not able to pronounce it after sitting with him for a whole evening. And Firefighter Curry, the crew over at 54 for the hospitality that they gave last week. They were wonderful people. I had a good conversation and I appreciate them doing that. Like's been said, a reserve firefighter driver, huge asset to our organization, and also should be recognized all the time that he's volunteered for the Firefighters Burn Institute. Almost every fundraiser I've ever been to for them, he's also been there volunteering this time. So he's a huge asset to both organizations. Hopefully he'll stick around and continue his work with the Burn Institute. And lastly, I just want to make note of one thing we learned in our finance meeting. Our OPEB trust, we have liabilities of about $244 million. Our trust as of 2/28 had 72 million in it, so we're about 30% there in the very short time that we've had that trust going. It just goes to show how important that is and that we maintain our contributions and maintain that trust. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director Rosali.
I just want to congratulate our retirees and thank them for their service. They have all made huge contributions to our communities and it's deeply appreciated. Beyond that, I have no further report.
Thank you. Director White.
Well, I also want to congratulate our retirees, and I'm hoping that we can take a moment of silence to conclude our meeting tonight for firefighter Mike Hogan, who just recently passed yesterday, and express my condolences to Judy, his wife, who opened her home on many occasions for several of us to visit Mike over the years. I had the opportunity to work with two of the three Hogan brothers. All three at one point were members of predecessor agencies of this department. And I just want to express my sincere condolences to Judy and the entire Hogan family, and hope we can take a moment of silence to conclude tonight.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I also would like to congratulate and thank the firefighters, the retirees, Rob Driver and Joe Reyes for their service. Looking forward to going to cap. One thing I must say, I was looking at my folder, just received it, and our board clerk has just done a magnificent job on putting it together. I'm really impressed. And also, finally, I just want to thank the men and women of Metro Fire for a wonderful job, a great job they do day in and day out. And happy Mother's Day to the mothers. My mom's really looking forward to it, as usual. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would just like to express my thanks for the hospitality that the C shift at 117, they invited me over and we had some great conversation over dinner. I always learn a great deal of information when I spend some time with the crews and the stations. There's nothing like sitting down around the table and having a meal that makes me feel like home again. I really do appreciate that. I too would like to express my congratulations to Robert Driver for his retirement and his many years of working with the reserves. He has always supported all of the community events out there in Rio Linda and Alberta. And from what I'm hearing, he's everywhere. He drives the reserve rig everywhere. That's great. And so let's do a moment of silence for Mike Hogan. Thank you. you very much. And this concludes our meeting for tonight. Thank you for coming.
Good night.